During the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange, human-like creature sparked brief local media interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little to no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed. Primarily focused on rural New York State and once found in Idaho, self-proclaimed witnesses told stories of their encounters with a creature of unknown origin. Emotions ranged from extremely traumatic levels of fright and discomfort to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity. While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remain powerful. Several of the involved parties began looking for answers that year. In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 24 documents dating between the 12th century and present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been in contact with a member of this group and was able to get some excerpts from their upcoming book. A suicide note, 1964. As I prepare to take my life, I feel it necessary to assuage my guilt or pain. I feel it necessary to assuage my guilt or pain I have introduced through this act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him. For once, I awoke and felt his presence. And once I awoke and saw his form. Once again I awoke and heard his voice and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I cannot ever wake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and 1 loose personal letter with no envelope. Dearest Lynn, I have prayed for you. He spoke your name. A journal entry translated from Spanish, 1880. I've experienced the greatest terror. I've experienced the greatest terror. I've experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They're hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand. I will not sleep. His voice. A mariner's log, 1691. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed, I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not come here again at the request of the Rake. From a witness in 2006. 3 years ago, I had just returned from a trip to Niagara Falls with my family for the 4th of July. We were all very exhausted after a long day of driving, so my husband and I put the kids straight to bed and called it a night. At about 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used the moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him in the process. I apologized and told him I thought that he was out of bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped, pulled his feet up from the end of the bed so quickly his knee almost knocked me out of the bed. He then grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for a half second, I was able to see what caused the strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting and facing away from us, was what appeared to be a naked man, or a large, hairless dog of some sort. Its body position was disturbing and unnatural, as if it had been hit by a car or something. For some reason, I was not instantly frightened by it, but more concerned as to its condition. At this point, I was somewhat under the assumption that we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knee, tucked into the fetal position, occasionally glancing at me before returning to the creature. In a flurry of motion, it scrambled around the side of the bed and then crawled quickly in a flailing sort of way right along the covers until it was less than a foot from my husband's face. He was completely silent for about 30 seconds, probably closer to 5, but it seemed like a while, and just looked at my husband. It then placed its hand on his knee and ran into the hallway, leading to the kids' room. I screamed. I ran for the light switch, planning to stop this thing before it hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, the light from the bedroom was enough to see it crouched and hunched over about 20 feet away. It turned around and looked directly at me, covered in blood. I flipped the switch on the wall and saw my daughter, Clara. The creature ran down the stairs as my husband and I rushed to help our daughter. She was badly injured, spoke only once more in her short life. She said, "He is the Rake." My husband drove his car into a lake that night while rushing our daughter to the hospital. They didn't survive. Being a small town, news got around pretty quick. The police were helpful at first, and the local newspaper took a lot of interest as well. However, the story was never published, and the local television news never followed up either. For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in a hotel near my parents' house. After we decided to return home, I began looking for answers myself. I eventually located a man in the next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact, talked about our experiences. He knew of 2 other people in New York who had seen the creature that we now refer to as the Rake. It took the 4 of us 2 solid years of hunting on the internet and writing letters to come up with a small collection of what we believe to be accounts of the Rake. None of them gave any details, history, or follow-up. One journal held an entry involving the creature in its first 3 pages, then never mentioned it again. The ship's log explained nothing of the encounter, saying only that they were told to leave by the Rake. That was the last entry on the log. There were, however, many instances where the creature's visits was one of a series of visits with the same person. Multiple people also mentioned being spoken to, my daughter included. This led to wonder if the Rake had visited any of us before our last encounter. I set up a digital recorder next to my bed, left it running all night, every night for 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around in my bed each day when I woke up. By the end of the second week, I was quite used to the occasional sound of sleep while blurring through the recordings 8 times the normal speed. It still took almost an hour. On the first day of the 3rd week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. It was the Rake. You can't listen to it long enough to even begin to transcribe it. I haven't let anyone listen to it yet. All I know is that I've heard it before, and I now believe that it spoke when it was sitting in front of my husband. I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason, the voice on the recorder immediately brings me back to that moment. The thoughts that might have gone through my daughter's head made me very upset. I haven't seen the Rake since he ruined my life, but I know that he's been in my room while I slept. I know, and I fear that one night, I'll wake up to see him staring at me. I'm not a paranormal investigator. I'm an author. While looking for inspiration for a book, I came across a series of stories surrounding a home in the American Pacific Northwest. It's an extremely ordinary-looking house in an extremely ordinary-looking residential neighborhood, but the stories that have emanated from its former residents and the people who live in the town that it's located in are quite extraordinary. Through my research of the house on Wendell Lane, I've come across accounts that range from the supernatural to just plain bizarre. In order to protect the privacy of the people in the town and the current inhabitants of the house on Wendell Lane, I have not only changed the name of everyone in these stories, but the name of the street as well. Wendell Lane is just an alias for the true location of these accounts. Daniel Huff is a drifter who's been described as dangerous and unbalanced. He is currently wanted for the murder of his wife, Margaret. 7 years ago, she was allegedly thrown from the top of their apartment complex. Daniel, who was the only witness, claimed that she jumped, but disappeared shortly after investigation was launched. He's been said to turn up at the funerals of suicide victims making strange claims and asking family members about the circumstances surrounding their loved ones' deaths. In March of this year, an anonymous tip led police to a hotel room he had rented in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. He was not present, but many of his belongings were recovered. The following is an excerpt from his audio journal. It involves a former resident of the house on Wendell Lane. The case he references is very public, so the important names have been edited out in order to prevent people from digging into the house and learning its true location. Margaret, it's been 7 years, and every morning when I wake up I still roll over expecting to see you there, lying next to me. I swear you used to glow in the morning. It isn't fair what happened. It isn't right with it. That thing did to you. I'm gonna make it pay, though. I promise you, I'm gonna make it pay. Things have been quiet for about 6 months. I thought the trail had run cold, but 5 weeks ago, a story started getting picked up by media circles, and I thought it sounded like our friend was back. A woman in recently headlines for the murder of her 8-year-old daughter. Her defense attorney was lobbying hard for an insanity plea, and she claims to be suffering from a total loss of memory in the hours surrounding her daughter's death. This situation-specific amnesia might sound all too convenient, but her story did share some common elements with the other cases I've looked into, so I've decided to dig a little deeper. I was glad I did, because what I found was exactly the kind of break I've been waiting for. A clinical psychologist was assigned to the case in order to assess her mental faculties. He performed many tests during his examination and did eventually concluded that her insanity plea did carry merit. During his testimony, he cited the hypnotherapy sessions he performed on her as one of the things that swayed his decision. I was able to obtain a copy of one of these sessions after breaking into his office, and after listening to it, my suspicions were confirmed. Damn thing's reared its ugly head again and ruined yet another person's life. Still, it's curious this happened on the other side of the country. It's been my thinking that it only seemed to lurk around the Northeast, since every single incident that's ever been reported has come out of New England. Yet here it is, turning up in... Strange. There could be another factor at play here. I've looked into the place, and though this is the only incident regarding the creature I've been hunting, the house itself, I don't know, it seems to have a history of paranormal activity. Maybe some places are just magnets for these types of things, I don't know. I don't really care. All that matters is that I find this thing and I put it down. Play the recording I've obtained. Margaret, if you can hear it, I know you'd be pleased. It's back, and I feel like I'm closer to it than ever. So you hadn't heard the stories? No, I hadn't heard any of the stories about the house until after Lily and I moved in. I actually first heard about it through her. She came crying home from school one day because the kids found out where she lived and were teasing her about it. What do they say? The kids say it was haunted. Do you believe that? Is that why you're here? No, I don't think it's haunted. I mean, I don't know, but I think it's something else. You said you heard other stories. Yeah, a guy I work with lived in the town his whole life. He had at least a dozen different stories he's heard over the years. My neighbor's teenage daughter wouldn't babysit Lily unless she came over to her house. So, are you ready to begin the hypnotherapy session? Yeah, I'm ready, Doctor. I'm going to fast forward the audio here. The doctor spends about 20 minutes getting her in the right state of mind. It isn't important. The audio will pick back up at the good stuff. I always thought hypnosis was bullshit, but whatever he did seemed to work, because it doesn't really sound like herself anymore. It's like she's been sedated, like she's, I don't know, taking a bunch of morphine or something. Please tell me your name. My name's Jean. Very good. I want you to listen to me. Pay attention to my questions. Answer them the best of your ability. You're back in the house now, right before Lily died. Tell me what you see. It's late. I'm looking at the digital clock on the DVD player. It's 2:22 a.m. You can't sleep? No. I tried earlier, but something didn't feel right. I've never felt so uncomfortable in my own bed before. So what do? You watch TV? Yes. But nothing is on. Still, it feels better than lying in bed. Where is Lily? I put her to bed hours ago. She cried when I tucked her in. And why was she crying? She said that she saw a monster in her room last night. She was scared. I told her that if she gets scared, she can hide under her blanket, and that no monster can get her there. So you're watching TV. You look at the clock, it says 2:22. Then what? I hear a noise coming from Lily's room. A noise? What kind of noise? Like a thud? No, like an animal. Or a man. I don't know, it sounds like a person growling, like if a person was doing an impression of what an angry dog might sound like. Could it be Lily? I don't think Lily can make this noise. She's only 8, and this voice has too much bass in it for a little girl. I'm scared. What happens next? As I approach the door, the noise gets louder. I open the door. And what do you see? It's Lily. She's standing in the middle of her room with her lavender floral print blanket draped over her head. It's oversized, and she's just a little girl, so it covers her whole body and drapes across the floor. I think she's facing the closet. The noise is coming from her. Has Lily ever done anything like this before? No. What happens next? I call her name. I'm so nervous that my voice barely escapes as a whisper. She stops making that snarling noise and turns in my direction. Lily, I say a little louder. What are you doing? Then I hear Lily's voice. It's barely audible. Mommy. It sends shivers down my spine because it's not coming from the blanket. Lily's voice isn't coming from the blanket. Where's it coming from then? From her closet. I tiptoe around the mound in the middle of the room. I keep my eyes on it the whole time. It doesn't move, but it begins growling again. It's louder this time. My heart is racing 1,000,000 miles an hour. I feel like it's going to jump out of my chest. I get to the closet and open the door. Lily is sitting behind it. She's been crying. I pick her up in my arms. She buries her head on my shoulder. Something else is in the room with you and Lily, and it's under the blanket. Yes. I'm not fully grasping it until just now. I'm praying in my head that whatever is under Lily's blanket doesn't come out. It's still growling. The noise is getting louder, and now I know I have to go back around it to get to the door. What is Lily doing? She is crying, holding me tight. And what happens next? I start to move slowly for the door, but it begins to shift under the blanket. I feel like my legs are frozen. Frozen how? Too scared to move? I'm scared, but I don't know. I just can't move. Then it shows itself to me. It comes out from under the blanket, and it's terrible. It's a monster. There's no other way to describe it. It has big black eyes and long, sharp fingers. Its skin is yellow. Its mouth, it's awful. It's the most awful thing I've ever seen. You still can't move. My whole body feels like a statue. Lily's begging me to run, but I can't. It moves like an animal, stalking us on all fours, but in my heart I know it's not me that it wants, it's her. It wants Lily. Yes, it sneaks its way right up to us, but it's completely ignoring me now, and I'm not sure if it ever really cared I was there. I realize now I can't talk. God, why can't I talk? I'm paralyzed. Lily's scared. It's staring right into her eyes. It extends a finger and scratches her on the cheek. I want to scream, but I can't. I'm helpless. This thing just made my baby bleed. I think I want to watch as it tortures her, but after that, it leaves. It leaves. Where does it go? Out the window. I can move again after that. I carry Lily into the kitchen. I put her on the counter so I can dial the police. Is she still crying? No, she's catatonic. I'm terrified, so I can't imagine how she must be feeling. When I finally get the operator, I tell her what happened, but she doesn't believe me. She asks if I'm on any medication. And what happens next? I remember the window's unlocked in Lily's bedroom, so I head back in there to make sure the thing hasn't returned. And it isn't back. I lock the window, and as I'm doing this, I'm trying to convince the damn dispatcher to send the police over to my house, and then I go back into the kitchen. Lily is standing there with a carving knife. She has it pointed towards her stomach. She looks at me, except she's not looking at me. She's looking through me. And her eyes are glassy and glazed over, and again I'm frozen. Even though I locked the window, I can feel that thing's presence in the room. I can't move. I want to go to her, but I can't. Something's not letting me. She drives the knife into her stomach. She does it again and again and again, and it's terrible. And when she's done, she falls to the floor, and her face is white, So much blood all over the floor. I'm in shock. All I could do is stare at her right before she shuts her eyes, and she whispers something to me. It's barely audible, but I'm able to hear it. What does she say? She says, he is the Rake. Hey guys, you know I made a video game. So Megabyte Games is me and General Drowned, and we're trying to make a couple video games together. If you guys would like to see what games those are, check out Midnight Myths. It's on my itch.io, MrCreepyPasta.itch.io. If you want to download the game, it's free, and you can check it out for yourself and let me know what you think. As always, I want to give a very big thank you to everybody out there on patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. You guys are honestly a lifesaver when it comes down to this. I feel like a lot of stresses in my life kind of have been leading me to pulling my hair out, but you guys giving me support has been immense for me. So I want to say a big thank you to everybody that's on there, even if you can only donate $1. Hey, you guys are keeping me alive at this point. So a very, very big thank you to everybody there, and to especially Jordan Humble, Diana Kraus, King Crab, Calcifer 420, Veronica Lynn Lopez, Marlon Chavez, Azazel 66603, Ethan Leon, Polaris Prospect X, Blake Rattler, Viceroy Scorn, Samara Lynn, Disciple, SullyMan, Brandon Mendoza, BrimstonePandemonium, Caltuna, William Wellington, Scruffy the Janitor, Brenna Crow, LaQueda, Canizales, Smiley the Psychotic, Dante Kinkade, SimbasBloodyMojo, CursepoxPrimarch, M, Jenna's Pet, Clonable, J Kearns, Mike, himbojerry, CrusaderChocobo, Remember the Sun, Estebean, Hour Minute Second Time, Seclude, Salty Surprise, Red Shadowcat, Turtleman, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Voice of Sand, Ficomel, Melted Lake, Tully Sue, Croconut 509, Stricken, Freddy Krueger, Hades Nephew, Tommy Walters, Acid System, Sky Harbor, Nico Kaio, Tristan Pelton, Ball Arms the Rat, The Ginger Bros, Daniel Polson, and Corey Kinchin. To all of you guys there, everybody who's down in the description, and everybody who can just give $1, I want to say thank you to you guys. And if you would like to join this list in the description, head over to patreon.com/MrCreepy. And if you would like to join this list in the description, sweet dreams.